All right, guys, so we're back at it. This game is really wrapping up to be something pretty cool. In the last video, we worked on the projectiles taking health points away from our enemies, and then also playing the hurt animation and death animation. So we were able to kill enemies. Something that we need to consider now is we need to know like how long a wave is. Like we're gonna have waves of enemies come through, right? So that wave of enemies, we need to, we have to think about, we have to gamify this now. We have all the functionality, but we need to, decide how many enemies start in wave 1 and how many do we add every wave and how many escaped enemies means game over, right? So let me just drag over the image of the finished version that I did. And I just want to show some things. We have to, keep track of money. So we need some way, we need like starting funds so you can build your first towers. And we also have to, add a price to each tower. So if the player can't afford it, he can't build any tower that he wants. So we need to think about that. We also have to have some UI here. We have to show how many escaped enemies, and this would be added throughout all the waves. It would not clear out, so we have to keep track of that. It would probably be good to also keep track of the wave number so the user knows how far he has gotten in the game. And then also, if there is a game over or the game hasn't started yet, you need something like this banner to display like start game or game over. And then this button would have to say play next wave or play. Like if it's the first time starting the game, it should say play. If it's a game over, it should probably say play again. And if they're going to the next wave, it should probably say next wave. So we have a lot to do on the gamified side. We have to keep track of the wave number. We have to keep track of total money, total escaped enemies. We probably also have to keep track of the total escaped for the round, because if an enemy doesn't die, we have to know if he escaped, right? Like we have to know if the wave is over. Like are all the enemies off the map? They're either dead or they escaped, right? So we're going to have to keep track of that. That's a good start. We're going to have labels. So every label you see on this screen would be its own variable. So we're going to have to do that. We have some UI to add, obviously. Select some more sprites off of our sprite sheet to make our UI buttons. I will keep this open. We can reference this throughout this lesson. So we can start adding things and all this stuff. So all this that is going to be game wide, we need to put in our game manager. And since it's a singleton, we can access it from anywhere. And it's just the best place. So the way we set up our game, that's the way we're going to want to do it. So let's go into our game. We're exactly where we left off. We have the animations we set up and the parameter did die trigger. So let's think here. Like we could set up our UI first. Maybe setting up our UI would be the best thing to do. So we need to add, let's go back to this screen. We need to add a sprite that holds our values. So basically this black box is a sprite, and then the 10 on there is just a label that we can set text to, okay? So we'll go through all that right now, and we should probably add some prices to our towers. So let's monetize this gameplay a little bit. So let's add prices to our towers, and let's keep track of the user's money. So every enemy they die or that they kill, they should probably get a reward amount for. So let's think about all that. Let's first start with doing the towers. Let's change that UI. We'll get these shields on there. We will import some custom font. We'll go through all that. All right, so let's go ahead and click on your scene editor up here in the top left corner. And we see all this cool stuff. We're going to have to zoom back out, remember, because the way that the canvas works, it's just huge. But that's all right. We can zoom in a little bit. Whoa. All right. So we want to add those little shields to this just to add price. And feel free to be as creative as you want. You can make these look however you want. You can make these look however you want. I just didn't want to try to force font or any sort of text on top of these images. So let's go into our sprite field and go into our sprite folder inside of assets, sprite, and then go to the GUI. And let's look at these. I'm going to, on the first window, not window 2, I'm going to hit sprite editor. I don't know if this is the right one. I'm just going to open it to see. Let's see. Well, it looks like we could import some things. Why don't we import this banner that we wanted? This looks like a... Does that look like our banner? Yeah, I guess so. So just go ahead and select... Oh, you know what we have to do? We have to set the sprite mode to multiple, or it won't let us pull it out. Let's do that to window 2 right away as well. All right, window 2, sprite mode, multiple. All right, back to, hit apply. Back to the window, go ahead and click on sprite editor. And we want this little flag for the status of our game, like what wave it is, game over, and start. So just highlight it like this, and then click on the trim in the upper left corner. And it will bring it in as tight as it can. And let's call this game banner maybe. That should be good. And then hit apply. Okay, and now we want this arrow for holding our escaped enemies and also the wave title so we can see it during gameplay. So go ahead and select this one and then click trim, and let's name this one game display, or maybe stats display. So stats display, that would be good. And then hit apply. Let's zoom out here. I believe we are done in this window for now, so let's close it. Okay, so click on elements and go to sprite editor. Here we go. This is what we want. So we want to have our price, our little money symbol, our little like score tracker, our scoreboard, I suppose we should call it. And there are multiple ones we can pick from. Oops, hit revert. This one is probably good. So let's go ahead and just select this one. And if you want to use a different one here, you can pick anything. We're just using it pretty much for the dark background. And go ahead and click trim so it pulls it in. And let's just name this scoreboard. And then click apply. Okay, let's close this and let's just go look at this picture again. We need one more. It looks like we just need a plain button here that we can put font on for the next wave. So let's go back into this. And I believe it's in elements, not buttons. So go back and do sprite editor. And yeah, we're just going to pick this plain like display and use it as a button because it'll work perfect for what we want it for. So select that, click trim, and we'll call this next button, or you can call it play button, whatever you want. Maybe play button is the better name for it. So play button, and then go ahead and hit apply. Okay, once that's done, you can open these up and you can see everything that we've added. So that's cool. We forgot to find our shields. So we have to find our little shields. Go back to elements and hit sprite editor. There's our shield right at the top. All right, so go ahead and select that. click trim, and we will call this tower display. That sounds fine. And hit apply. All right, cool. Now we are done and we can add to our UI. So to add to our UI, let's go ahead and in the hierarchy, expand canvas, expand tower panel, and let's right click the first button here. And let's add a UI image. All right, so obviously that's huge, right? But that's okay. We just are going to set our new tower display. So drag the tower display from our GUI sprite into the sprite image here. Okay, perfect. And obviously it's over the whole thing and we don't want that. But we can go ahead and just make it smaller. I hold shift to keep the ratio the same. All right, and then select this guy, the next to the hand, so we can move the tower exactly where, or the shield exactly where we want it. All right, and now to get it exactly center, let's go ahead and go over to transform and see on the Y position 57. If we put 50, we want 57. Whoops. 57 is probably good. We want to put the X position to 0. And that will be the 0 point of that button. And look at that. That's pretty cool. I think that is probably a good size. I'm going to rename this tower display. And let's go ahead and just duplicate this. You can right click to duplicate. You can hit Command D or Control D in the Windows world. And then just take this new one and drag it onto the castle. And then we have to just move it over to the castle because it will stay exactly where we duplicated it. And then where the transform is, go ahead and make the X position 0. And the Y position should be 57 still. And then it will match this one exactly. And let's go ahead and rename this. Let's just get rid of that 1. All right, cool. And then we want to duplicate this one more time. So go ahead and hit Command D or Control D if you're Windows, and then drag it onto the rock button. And then we just have to move it over the rock button and then make sure the Y position is 57 and the X position is 0. Perfect. And let's rename this tower display. I'll just delete the 1 here. All right, cool. And if we go ahead and go to each button and hit apply, it'll send it to the prefab, and then that display, the new shield, will be part of the prefab button. All right, so we are done setting that up. Now we just have to add labels. All right, so now let's add a label. And we actually want this to be inside the tower display, right? So right click, let's start with the night button, right click the display we just added, and go to UI and just add text to it. And it'll load. Okay, there we go, our text. And let's rename this right away. Actually, it doesn't really matter. Let's just, let's call this one 15. And we're going to want to center it. And let's drag in the size of this box. It's huge, right? So let's go ahead and just bring the edge to the inside corner of the shield. All right, that looks pretty good. And we can barely see that 15. You guys might not even be able to. So let's go ahead and change it to a nice gold color that resembles money. Now, if you don't like this color, pick any color you want. I'm randomly picking it. And there we go. All right, so I don't know if you've noticed, but if you try to adjust the font, there is only one font in Unity. So we are going to add a new font. And in our asset folder, we already included a cool, included a cool Super Mario font. And You can't use this. Don't use this font for any commercial reason. This is from dafont.com. It's free for personal use, but you can't put this in like a paid app or anything without getting permission. I'm not saying you can't, but you have to get permission and know all the rights involved to using copyrighted material. So for this, we need a folder in our assets called fonts. So if we just go ahead and drag this fonts folder with the font in it, we're all set up. So go ahead and just drag it into your assets. And now we have a new folder called fonts. So now if we go to our tower display right here on the left, click on text and click on this little dot. Now we see another font. Pretty cool, right? So it's as simple as that for adding fonts. I'm not sure why it's so blurry right now. I don't think it'll show up blurry when we run the game. It's probably because I'm just so zoomed in. Let's I think let's just run it to see what this looks like. I'm curious to see if it's blurry. Oh, it looks pretty good. It's a little high on the shield, so we'll lower it, but that looks pretty good. I think the yellow is a little ugly. Maybe we should try to find more of a gold color. I don't know. I guess that's fine. We could spend all day tweaking that stuff. Let's click on the little arrow next to the hand so we can move this up and down. And go ahead and just slide the 15 down. And that probably will look good. So now all we have to do is go ahead and do Command D and then drag it into the castle tower display. And we have to drag it over. And then just make sure the X position in the transform is 0. And then let's change this one to 10 instead of 15. Whoop, no spaces. And then go ahead and duplicate the text 1 again in the hierarchy and drag it into the rock button display. And then go over to the transform and change the X position to 0. And then down here in the text, we want this to be $5. All right, I think that is looking pretty good. All right, so now that we have that UI ready, let's go ahead and get our scoreboard in the top left corner, just like this one, with font on it as well. And I think our default amount that we'll start a new player with is the $10. That way they can build 2 rock towers or 1 archer tower. It gives them a little more options right off the bat, which is probably more exciting for the user. So let's go ahead and place that up in the top right corner. Whoops. All right, so let's see that corner there. And all we're going to do, so let's go ahead and just right click canvas and go to UI and add a new image. And you don't want it inside the tower panel. All right, and there it is. So now let's go ahead and let's move it to the corner if it's going to let us. Okay, make sure the image is selected. And then let's go ahead and move it to the top left corner, wherever you guys like it. All right, and then in the image, the source image, in the source image, let's find our sprite. So go into GUI, and under elements, it is called scoreboard. So drag scoreboard into the image source. And there we go. Now we just have to make it look nicer. So go ahead and click the resizing tool, this one, and let's drag it a little longer. And this definitely has to be way skinnier. And I'm looking down here on the game display for how it will show up on the game. And I actually think that looks pretty good. So I'm going to save it and leave it there. And let's rename this image to scoreboard. Or maybe score panel. That would probably be good. And then let's right click that, and we need to add another UI text field, just like we did below for the towers. And this one, I'm just going to write 10 in so we see our default amount. And let's change our font from Arial to Super Mario 256. And then let's find our yellow. And I'm not sure what it is, so I'm going to just grab the eyedropper and come over here. I thought it let me do that. Okay, so come over here to our yellow. Whoops. Well, we could just use that yellow, I guess. All right. And then let's grab this the moving tool next to the hand, and let's just move this label over and down. All right, let's resize this font box a little bit, drag this up. And then over on the right side, let's go ahead and keep it left aligned, but let's center the text in the text field box. And then we can also probably make it a little bigger. Let's try 18. Yeah, 18 font looks good. And then just move it up a little bit. All right, let's go ahead and play this and see if we like how everything looks. And our button is in the middle. So we'll probably have to pin it to the top left corner. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so we just have to pin it to the top left corner. So go ahead and click on your score panel again. Make sure it's highlighted. And right here where you see the pivot, click on this and click on the top left. And you'll see this little star show up. It was in the center, and we want it in the top left corner here. All right, and now let's go ahead and run it and see if it's in the top left. And there it is. Now it's exactly where we want it. Everything's looking good. We're starting to almost have a game here. This is cool. All right, so a few more things that we need to add, right? We need to add the next wave button, and then we also need to add the escaped label, right? So let's go ahead and add that now. I think I'm going to not do the start and game over banner. That's going to be something I want you guys to do, and you guys can kind of, I mean, you've learned everything here. So everything we've done, you can replicate and you can change, you'll be able to change labels and all of that. And so you'll be able to add that banner next, and that'll be kind of like your little homework assignment to make this game your own also. So let's add that next wave button. That one's important. So click on your canvas, right click and say UI, and click on button. And there you go. You see a button dead in the center. That's cool. Let's go ahead and just drag that up. So select this arrow next to the hand, or those little, I don't even know what you call that. And let's just drag this up a little bit so it's not in gameplay anywhere. And that's probably good. And so let's open up this, and it already has a text field, so that's perfect. Let's just change the font to our cool Super Mario themed font. And then the color, let's change to our yellow. All right, so that's done. And it can say, let's just have it say next wave for now. It's centered, okay, everything is good. It's already aligned for this button. And now the button needs our image that we created, and we called that our play button. So if you go into sprites, go to the GUI, our play button inside of elements, that's what it is. So with the button on the hierarchy selected, you need to drag the play button into your button image graphic. Oh, I'm sorry, the image sprite right here. Okay, and there we go. That's our button. And we could probably make it a little thicker if we want. So grab the resizing tool, and that's probably good. All right, let's play this and see how it looks. We have to pin things again. So go ahead and stop, and let's pin this to the top center. All right, so just like that, and let's play it, and hopefully it's exactly, yeah, that looks pretty good. All right, we need to now add our escaped label. Let's go ahead and right click the canvas and let's add another image. All right. And then this image we need to move up towards the top. It's probably good. Let's grab the resizing tool and make it a lot skinnier. And let's make it longer. And this is going to be where we display how many enemies have escaped and what wave we're on. And then let's pin this to the top center as well. So with the image selected in the inspector, you're clicking on, in the rect transform, the anchor area, and you're clicking on the top center. All right. And then as far as naming this, let's call this, what did we name this? We called this stats display. So let's call this stats display. All right, and then with stats display selected, go over into your sprites, and it should still be open like my window, and drag the stats display image into your sprite source image. And there we go. Now now we have our display. Let's make it a little thicker. All right. So now we have to add 2 labels to this. We have to keep track of the wave, and then we also have to keep track of the escaped enemies. So right click this and hit create text, and let's change the font right away to Super Mario, and the color, we'll go ahead and I'm hitting the little eyedropper and then dragging it over our yellow, and I find the brightest one. There we go. That's that. And let's go ahead and make this center aligned and also centered inside the text field, and let's call this one wave 1. And then let's resize this. We can tighten it up a little bit, and let's move it, select the move tool next to the hand, and let's just slide this over a little bit. And I think that's good. And let's rename this text wave label. Okay. And then with that selected, go ahead and right click and duplicate, or Control D if you're on Windows, or Command D if you're on a Mac. And let's rename this one right away to escaped label. And then grab the little moving tool and let's just slide it to the right. And we'll change this font to escaped 0 out of 10. And I set it to, the way we'll be coding it is if 10 enemies escape, and that's total. So if 1 escapes on every level, you'd have 10 escaped on the 10th wave, but we're also going to only have 10 waves. So yeah, it'll be cool. And you can always adjust these later. So that is that. Let's go ahead and run this and make sure everything is where we want it. And yeah, that looks pretty good. And we could make things bigger if we need to, if it's hard to read. But we can decide on that later. So I think this is pretty good. We're going to stop the video here. We have the UI all set up, ready to make our game. And we'll connect labels and dive into our game manager in the next video. So I will see you guys there.